We had some massive construction projects coming out of that period. One that was a real disaster here in Sydney that was hemorrhaging $1 million cash every month. I had a lot of sleepless nights. You know? There's 1,200 people's families relying on us to keep this going. Sometimes you can be too slow to react.
What's your tips for driving long-term wealth?
Get good fire protection.
Yeah.
Be sensible, diversify, take a long-term view. Don't be discouraged when it's not a linear, kind of progression.
What's your definition of success?
If I think about it in the business context, my definition is
private markets investments are investors can find some real value. I find the best way to learn is learn from someone who's done it before and given it a go. Hi, I'm Travis Miller, host of Grow Your Wealth podcast. Thanks for joining me here today. On these podcast sessions, we're going to talk through how certain investors have navigated the bumpy road of investing, whether it be through business or investments in general. Thanks for listening today. Welcome back to the Grow Your Wealth podcast, where we bring you insightful conversation with industry leaders to help you navigate the world of finance and investments. I'm your host, Travis Miller, and today we have a very special guest, Andrew, joining us. Today we'll delve into Andrew's extensive career from his early days at Wormald and Chubb Security to salvaging Wormald from multi-million-dollar losses. Andrew's story is not just about building a business back from the brink of ruin, but also how he leveraged his past experiences to foster growth and success in the competitive security business arena. We're also here to explore some of the key lessons he learned along the way. So without further ado, let's dive into a conversation with Andrew. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Now, how about we go back to the start and just give us a bit of a story of, your background, where you grew up, where it all started?
Yeah, look, it was pretty average. I was born 1970, grew up in Cogra, went to Cogra Maris Brothers.
Gotcha.
Wasn't particularly sporting. It was a pretty sporting school.
Yeah.
But fumbled my way through that and then tried to figure out, what I should do after that, uni and so on,
Yeah, it looks like you've done a bit of study. Do you like studying?
I didn't mind. I don't know that I'm the best student, but I did okay at uni, and then towards the end, had some options to either sort of go down that academic route or get out and try and make a buck and do something, and I chose the latter.
Gotcha. What were the uni marks like?
They got better as I went. The first year was pretty terrible, and I had to repeat a couple of things.
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone seems to repeat a few, don't they?
Yeah. But then, you sort of get into the swing of it and you realise it's a lot more flexible than school, and you sort of get on with it,
Yeah, everyone grows up at different stages.
That's right.
Now, current role, what are you up to at the moment?
Current role, so I'm Chief Executive Officer of Wormald.
Yep.
Which is, it's a 350-year-old business. We employ around about 1,200 people around Australia, about 40 locations. So it's a reasonably big beast, but an old beast as well. Been through, listed, private ownership, multinational ownership, now back to private. So it's been a good journey.
You can tell us about your old man. He was there 50 years, wasn't he?
My dad is a bit of an icon in the sort of fire protection space globally. Yeah. And he was like Wormald's chief engineer, technical director for right through through to the late 80s. Yeah. He's still around. He's retired, but given me lots of advice on what to do with it now.
Gotcha. And he's from are you from the science or more the business background?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from a science background. I studied psychology and maths.
Gotcha.
Came out of uni and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I grew up with Wormald because of Dad. Yeah. So, I remember as a kid, Wormald had annual picnics at some nice showground. Everyone would go. Santa would come on a fire truck, and being exposed to it right through my teenage years. Wormald sponsored Manly Warringah through all the premierships in the 80s, so it became a kind of really well-known name. Yeah. And there's Pittwater Road, big office up there just before DY, offices in Waterloo, Crow's Nest. I used to go to the head office in Crow's Nest, and there was a static guard at the door with the Wormald on the hat, and they had a mainframe computer, and this was like, I don't know, early 80s. with all the tapes going around, everything. And I thought, oh, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So it kind of is in the back of my mind. When I couldn't find anything to do out of uni, I went and got a job with Chubb back in the security thing because I'd sort of been exposed to it. And I worked in their monitoring bunker for 12 months, 12-hour shifts, answering alarm calls.
Yeah, gotcha.
And, you know, as a young guy, I thought, oh, I don't know that I want to do this for very long. But you learn a lot, you know, in terms of you speak to high net worth homeowners, the police, you know, ambulance, business owners, all sorts of people. So anyway, that ran its course and I thought, I better find something else to do.
It's interesting. When I think about Wormald, I do think of the security. I think back in time, the security aspect was sort of part of the brand, right?
It was huge. You know, there was Wormald guards and monitoring. It was one of the big players. When Wormald got into trouble in the sort of late 80s, actually, your chairman, Bob Mansfield, was running it at that point, and they elected to sell Wormald Security.
Gotcha.
So it got sold to Chubb.
Yeah.
With a 20-year non-compete. So Wormald got right out of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've done running it is relaunch that business.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, there's a lot of great equity around that. Still a lot of people know Wormald from Manly too.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in the company DNA, it probably makes sense to bounce back into it, right?
100%.
Given how long the business has been going.
100%. I mean, it's different now. We're not doing kind of, you know, burglar alarm monitoring and things like that. We do sort of ultra high end security for Parliament House, Government House, things like that. Sort of government level. So it's a smaller business, but you know, it's nice. It's been growing well.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. It helps us build a community. We want to educate investors, and this is what it's all about. Now back to the more the personal side of things. We talk about a few people that have influenced you. Obviously, your father.
Yeah.
During that period of time. Is anyone else that's turned
I
on?
mean, look, Dad's been a huge influence, but others, I think one of the guys at the University of Sydney when I was doing undergrad, Ian McGregor, who's a professor of psychology there.
Yeah.
He's doing some big research projects still today, but he was my supervisor when I was doing honours and great guy, really smart. You know, I really kind of looked up to him and thought, wow, you know, academically gifted. He kind of dragged me along and made me better. And he was an interesting guy because he wasn't money driven. He was more knowledge driven, you know, and it's a kind of different perspective. And that stuck with me. He's a good guy. And then when I first started with Wormald, I worked in the fire door. They had a fire door manufacturing business up at Brookvale.
Gotcha.
And so I went for an interview there. It was over the Chubb thing. And I ran into a guy. The guy who interviewed me was a guy called Trevor Mackle, an Englishman. He was running that business. And I'd gone for a quality control job. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to give it a go based on the maths. And I thought the only thing I know about quality control is, you know, you get rejects. You know, there's good things and rejects. Yeah. So I'm walking around this factory with Trevor, and we walked into this long warehouse. And it's full of stuff. It looked like Indiana Jones with all the boxes piled up as far as you could see, you know, in the warehouse. And I said to him, well, do you get many rejects? Yeah. And he said, this whole effing warehouse is rejects. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I might have bitten off more than I can chew, you know. But he was the consummate salesman, the hanky in the pocket, you know, a million business cards, or whatever business card you wanted to see he had. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him about, you know, street tactics, how to sell things, how to appeal to people. So he was good.
That's pretty handy.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter what business you're in sales, right? You've got to find someone's a customer. Ultimately, you've got to do a trade or you're not in business.
That's it, yeah.
Even if you don't realise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good. So this sort of overlaps a bit, but sort of a couple of pivotal moments in your career, because it's interesting how your career's tracked sort of in, out and back in.
Yeah, it's been all over the place. I mean, there are a couple of pivotal moments. I guess non-pivotal moment is I kind of, when you work for a big company, global company with Tyco owning Wormald for a while, you do everything at one point, right? Selling, servicing, installing, customer service, everything. So that kind of led me to where I am. But two pivotal moments. I remember we went over to London to present our sort of Asia Pacific budget and strategy for Tyco. Yeah. And my boss at the time had me do all the work, you know, like the background guy. Got over there with, 70-slide PowerPoint, all the bigwigs in the room. And my boss does the first slide and then says, oh, Andrew's doing the rest. And I thought, oh, shit. So anyway, I did it. And it was
Yeah.
one of those pitches that just went beautifully.
Yeah, got you.
And so then the global Tyco guys, I kind of got on the radar. So that was pivotal for my career. And then the last one, I guess the other one that's big was when I worked for Tyco for over 20 years. And I remember the president ringing me and saying, well, what are you going to do? We're selling Wormald. Are you staying or are you going? If you stay, we've got this president role for you for the region, great role. And I remember saying, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to take the punt and leave. And, I remember hanging up the phone in the car thinking, oh, that's probably not a good decision. I don't know. I'll see how it goes, you know. That's a bit of a risk, but that was pivotal for sure.
So you go back to that prezzo in the UK.
Yeah.
Why do you reckon it went well? Was it preparation? Or?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of preparation, to be honest. I mean, I was the background guy that did all the work, right? Gotcha. So all the other people would say, oh, look, we think the budget's like this. We sort of want to do this in this market. But I was the one who had to actually physically do the slides. And so when you do the work, beforehand, you kind of flow. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, when you're down in the weeds in the detail, it's pretty easy to do the pitch, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Hardest thing to do a pitch when you haven't done
when
the preparation,
you're not familiar,
right?
yeah, that's very uncomfortable.
Well, he obviously threw it to you for a reason, right?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So we can talk about your current role. Like, what does a normal day, normal week look like?
Yeah,
what do you get up
I think half every sort of second week I try to get out. So I try to get to the capital cities and then some regional operations just, to meet customers. It sounds kind of cliched, right? But actually just to spend time with our guys and girls and figure out, what the issues are.
Yep.
So a typical day is either I'm travelling somewhere or we've got a little home base at North Sydney.
Gotcha.
And it's really, we've been at it for quite a few years now. We're on a good trajectory, so it's kind of a little bit better than it was a few years ago. We had some hairy moments the first couple of years.
Gotcha.
It was tough.
Gotcha. Well, what was tough? Was it financial or was it just
financial?
Strategy?
Oh, the whole bit.
Yeah, gotcha.
But when you pull a business like this that's so old out of a big integrated multinational.
Gotcha.
It's like starting from scratch. You're like, day one, I need a lawyer. I need a financial controller because all that stuff stays with the mothership. So the separation bit's nasty, integration of IT systems, to produce an invoice. Oh, hang on, we've got to get our data out of that database. So that was all messy, email, everything. Yeah. But the other thing was financial. We had some massive construction projects coming out of that period. One, that was a real disaster here in Sydney that was hemorrhaging $1 million cash every month.
Wow.
So I was going to the project like trying to keep everyone engaged, but it was a disaster. Yeah. So the first 12 months, I think I and the CFO who came, we went together from the Tyco business. I had a lot of sleepless nights,
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode. If you want to learn more about alternative assets, there's a book here you can read, How You Grow Your Wealth with Alternative Assets. Now back to the episode. So what's that cost base too, right? Like you got to pay the bills, you got to pay the staff.
100%.
And when you see that pressure, it's very stressful, isn't it?
It is. It's funny. It dawns on you. You watch people over the years in the leadership roles, and you think, oh, that looks pretty cushy, Yeah. But then actually, it dawns on you, wow, there's 1,200 people's families relying on us to keep this going. And COVID was another one for a little while there when all the lockdowns happened. We thought, wow, if we can't get, everybody out, our labour bill is enormous. And if there's no revenue coming in because they're not working, that was a bit of a freak out.
I can totally see it. I mean, I sort of run a smaller scale business, but they are the things. Look at that cost base and how you keep the lights on.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things you got to juggle. A question I want to ask is: so you made the call to come back to Wormald. You're working for a large sort of global, institution. You obviously had a regional type role as well. What sort of gave you the courage to say, I'm out, I'm going to have a crack at this, which sounded like nearly a startup business that had been around for 100 years.
Yeah, it's like the 135-year-old startup.
What gave you the confidence to make that call?
It's a good question. I think two things. One of them was people used to joke I had the longest apprenticeship in history because I was like the two eyes see to 4 or 5 presidents in a row.
Yeah, I got you.
So I spent a lot of time traveling to the US and around the region. So I got to observe, what they did. And everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
Some of them you get along with better than others, but my idea is you pick up something from everyone, right? So I sort of felt like apprenticeship-wise, I knew what needed to happen and how it was done. But the other one was, I've had a long relationship with our CFO, a guy called Chris O'Sullivan, who's super talented with the numbers, really high intellect guy. And we'd been talking about it together as Tyco people and said, it's probably a good time to jump. So having someone with you makes a massive difference.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like if people start a small business, it's a lot easier to start it with a partner or a friend.
Is. Yeah.
It does create issues down the track when you start arguing with them.
That's right.
But it is easier to make the jump if
not
you've got
too many partners,
if you got someone coming along for the ride.
100%. And I think if it's someone you've worked with and you know how they work and you trust each other and there's sort of complementary skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of partners, I think, gets more complicated because you have a different dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if we go to a few things that have worked, if you think about your career, what's gone your way?
I mean, what's worked for me, I guess personally, is just giving anything a go, and so kind of being the Swiss Army knife. If someone says, "Oh, well, someone's got to look after this," do you want to have a go? And just really trying to immerse yourself in it and give it a go, right? Some of them haven't worked, but that's always been good for me because you get a reputation as a problem solver and prepared to do whatever.
Yeah.
So personally, that's been good. From a business perspective, like the overall company, when we separated from Tyco, I thought, it's all about empowering the local people, decentralising things, reducing the corporate team, streamlining, and, we're going to unleash this thing.
Yeah.
And you find when you decentralise and take some of the rules away, there's a section of the community that really likes that, and they're like, great, we can be entrepreneurial. And there's another quite big section that are like, no, we don't like that. We just want the rules. Just tell us what you want us to do.
This staff-wise, right?
Yeah.
Team members. Yeah, for sure.
And so, that's a big learning for me. The centralised versus decentralised businesses is another one.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of be close to the customer if you're a regional business. But it's a real balancing act because you get big customers and they say, oh, no, I get a different service in Tamworth than I do in Canberra, and what's going on? Yeah. So it's this kind of pendulum balancing act. But, reducing the corporate cost also is a bit of a challenge because people are used to having support for stuff, and you say, well, we're going to cut that out.
Yeah, for sure. Comes about that cost base.
Yeah.
I like your first point, right, of just having a crack at stuff. Like if there's a task, which sort of means to me you're probably happy to fail. And I know as a boss, I just love the people that just say, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And they could stuff it up, they could go wrong. But at times you've really just got to try, right?
I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've given it a go, okay, so a couple of things don't go right. You normally get a leave pass for that.
For sure. And then the next time you probably get it right.
Correct.
You've learned along the way.
Probability, you learn.
Yeah, like for example, I tiled a bathroom once and it was absolutely horrendous. But time I'd finished it, I knew how to tile.
You were good.
Unfortunately, I was not taking the effort to rip all those tiles off.
100%.
Yeah, it was good fun. And a couple of things have gone wrong.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things that have gone wrong in a way. I think sometimes you can be too slow to react. If you look at the people, you think, no, this person's kind of gets it. They know what they're doing, and the results aren't flowing, and you're kind of trying to tweak it. But I think at some point you just have to cut your losses and say this doesn't work for them, doesn't work for us, and move on.
Yeah, it's good.
So that people issue is a massive one. Other things are like I said, I guess maybe decentralised everything too much, and then you risk turning into the Wild West, right? People go the other way and say, expenses or whatever. Oh, we accountable for all this stuff? So. You got to kind of pull it back. But like you said with your bathroom example, you learn once and then, next time around,
Yeah, exactly right. Now, what about a couple of tips? If you were speaking to a few younger people, went back to uni, you're doing a lecture.
Yeah.
What's a few things you'd throw out there?
I would say, be useful. Just turn your hand to, don't restrict yourself to your thinking, oh, look, I did finance, I'm going to be a finance guy, There's lots of things you can do with the skills you learn at uni, just in terms of, logic, presentation, preparing an argument, things like that you can apply in all sorts of business. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, don't be discouraged when it's not a linear, kind of progression, because I did heaps of jobs where I just got sort of shuffled sideways. In fact, we had like a HR consultant come in and do these 360 reviews, and I had an interview with this guy, and he said, "You're in a dip role." And I said, "What's that mean?" And he says, "Die in place." He said, "You're in this functional thing. You've got to get out of it, get into an operational role." And I remember being really depressed, thinking, oh, no, this is a professional expert in your career. But, 6 months later, another opportunity, and I jumped to that. So I think don't be discouraged if it's not, a clear path.
I agree.
It's sort of what you make it.
Yeah, I agree. It's like if you want to get a house at auction, you miss it. You get upset, but there's another one down the road that's about to pop up.
100%.
That is the thing about career. If you just keep going, opportunities always turn up.
That's it.
And for some people, if they don't, you can go and start your own business.
That's right. That's right.
See how that goes. Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening. What's your definition of success?
Look, I mean, if I think about it in the business context, my definition is taking Wormald from, losing a lot of money to back into profit, being healthy, sustainable, and so kind of leaving the business in a better place than I found it.
Gotcha.
If you think, I've been kind of in and around it for a while, but in a 135-year history, that I'm just a steward at the moment. So that's one thing. I guess more from a personal perspective, usual stuff. I want my kids to be healthy and happy and balanced. And so it's a bit of combination of, personal ego that I've done something good, but also the family side.
Does your dad still tell you could do it better, or he's giving you tips, or he patting you on the back?
Yeah, a bit of all of that. He's in his 90s, but he's still pretty sprightly, and every time I have a conversation with him, I learn something I didn't know about the history of the place, or some dynamic. And it's funny, a lot of this stuff doesn't change over the decades, right? Same issues, same people issues, same dynamics, same business, everybody complaining that it's a competitive market, and the competitors are making more money than us. It's the same thing over and over,
Yeah. Interesting. So you never took out the back, lit a fire, and tested any equipment in the backyard?
Oh, look, I think at least one of our older managers, I think my dad tried to kill his father with a fire extinguisher that, the top blew off and it went past his head. But
that's part of the game, I would have thought. Before health and safety.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
That's good. That's the science. Righto, a couple of quick fire questions.
Yep.
Now, what was your first job? You go as young as you want to go.
Yeah, I think 15-year-old kitchen hand at McDonald's in Sans Souci.
Yeah. They say McDonald's is a great training ground.
That's what I got told. Yeah.
They put you through courses. Piece of advice for your younger self?
I'd say, looking at my daughter, work harder at uni and school. I was, probably relatively lazy.
Gotcha.
And I look at my daughter and think, where'd she get this focus and kind of drive from? And so I kind of look at that and think, and also just don't get stressed about stuff, It's a bit like you said about the auctions.
Yeah.
Things come and go.
It is like that path, the kids, isn't it? Because, the easiest path, study hard at high school, study hard at uni, and you'll get a grad job.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. There's lots of paths through, and I did the other path.
Yeah.
I was a bit like you. I didn't study very hard at all. But when you look back in hindsight, the actual path's quite easy to get your first job.
Oh, it sure is.
So we don't all see it. No. What motivates you most as a person?
I like to be good at what I'm doing, and I like to fix things. Gotcha. Even personally, I like DIY projects, and I like them to be professional. It's like your tile example,
Yeah.
I'll fiddle around to make sure, and that goes for everything in business as well, I like the pitch to be right, so I enjoy that.
What do you do if you get one wrong?
Kick myself and move on. Some of them are irritating because you think, I thought I planned for that, and you don't, but you just got to move on.
Yeah, you got no choice. take the hit, and move on.
100%.
What's your tips for driving long-term wealth?
Well, okay, if you're a business owner, get good fire protection.
Yeah, good.
Because if your place burns down, you might be able to claim insurance, but your business is messed,
true,
right?
true.
So that's. But from a general investment perspective, I think it's the usual stuff. Be sensible, diversify, take a long-term view.
Yeah.
Even things like I took out 2 little investment funds when I was younger. The kids were just born for education.
Yeah.
Put a little bit in each month and all that. And I thought at the time, I don't know about this. But anyway, I still got them and they paid for, private school fees,
Serious?
uni, a car.
Yeah.
And there's still money left. And it's just that power of, compounding over time. It sounds really boring.
Yeah.
And,
It's funny the amount of people I chat with that end up talking about compound interest and the benefit of progressive. Take the time and it'll get there.
And it's harder the younger you are, the harder that is to appreciate, right? You just think,
sure.
you got, it's plenty of time. I'll do that later.
Yeah. We should drop a little plug for Mark Sherwood too, who introduced us.
Yes, yeah. Well, he's been part of that journey for me. Good guy, yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest mistake, aside from not having fire protection, biggest mistake people make in building wealth?
I think kind of looking for instant gratification, if you will, especially with, I guess, younger people, right? House prices are crazy expensive, but everybody kind of wants the nice house, the big TV, the nice car.
Yeah.
And I think if you hold off on some of that stuff and kind of, that ratio of how much you can save and invest versus how much you spend, be a bit more clued up to that. Longer term, it'll pay off, but you've got to play the long game, I guess.
Yeah, totally agree. Take your time. Then when you're not working, how do you spend your time?
I spend a lot of time obsessing over the business. So, when I'm not, I enjoy traveling. I like driving and cars, and I got a little place down in the Southern Highlands. So
that's great.
It's a bit of a combo job. I get to drive down there, and muck around. I do projects, gardening, reading.
That's great.
I read books by Travis Miller, podcasts, all that sort of stuff. And I enjoy that. There's so much information you can get access to today, whether you're driving in the car or... So I enjoy just learning stuff.
Yeah. Where's your place? Down south?
Just outside of Mittagong.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's a nice place. It's cool nights, cool winters, nice summers,
Yeah, there's something for just getting out of the city, isn't there?
It is.
Nice
the sprawl's increased. There's more, I bought a long time ago, but there's more traffic lights and more housing developments and all that.
So when you park the car when you get there, open the door, the fresh air, you're out of the city and about to have a break.
You sound like you're familiar with that, right?
I've got a place a little bit up north, but I grew up in the country.
Yeah, okay.
I look at the city at times as a bit of a means to the end.
It's an amazing feeling, isn't it? Just to say, I'm in a different environment.
Yeah.
It's like your shoulders relax and...
Sure. Really appreciate you coming in for the chat. Now, anyone interested in connecting with Andrew, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. We'll also include the link in the show notes, but really appreciate the chat.
Appreciate your time. It's been good. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Hey, if you're enjoying this, please leave a review. It's really important to us. We're trying to build momentum around education, and better reviews will get more people coming and listening.